In the bleakest corners of London, violence is the permanent soundtrack to a relentless reality. A teenager named Tom tries to drown out the chaos from his window using a computer screen. The next morning brings a rare victory when Tom's friend Danny hands him an MP3 player he's been begging for. At school, Tom's mind drifts to Lucy. He is captivated by her, but paralyzed by shyness. When Lucy warmly asks him for help with science after class, the moment is shattered by Eugene, the school tyrant, who mocks Tom's awkwardness. Lucy fiercely defends Tom, commanding Eugene to back off, and invites Tom to a local apartment later to study. After a brief stifling interaction at home with his grandmother Nancy, Tom slips into the darkening city. Arriving at the designated apartment, Tom is met with a heavy silence. Inside, he finds a man bleeding unconscious, while a ruthless gang films the brutality. Realizing the nightmare he has stumbled into, Tom sprints down the corridor. A deafening crack rings out. A bullet tears into his back, dropping him instantly as the crew vanishes. 10 days later, Tom wakes in a hospital ward to a tearful Nancy. The doctor's explanation sounds like science fiction. The bullet struck Tom's smartphone on impact, driving microscopic metallic fragments deep into his cranium. Miraculously alive, Tom is warned to watch for bizarre anomalies. Ignoring his pain, he asks about Lucy. Nancy assures him she survived and was discharged days ago. The taxi ride home is thick with unease as Nancy argues with the driver. As the shouting escalates, Tom's gaze locks onto the pulsing digital numbers of the taximeter. A violent static hiss explodes inside his skull, broadcasting data directly into his consciousness. Overloaded, he blackouts. Tom awakes at home, his flesh regenerating at superhuman velocity. At Nancy's urging, he visits Lucy to apologize for running away during the attack, but she insists there was no heroism to be found against armed monsters. Leaving her apartment, Tom's world fractures. A deafening symphony of cell conversations, television frequencies, and smart device data floods his mind, visualizing as luminous matrices of digital information floating in mid-air. Within this digital matrix, Tom's mind tethers to Eugene's phone, uncovering a sickening truth. The school bully helped orchestrate the attack on Lucy. The next day, Danny chalks it up to post-traumatic hallucination, but when Tom catches Eugene forwarding the video of Lucy's assault, blinding rage hits him. Locking his gaze, Tom uses his mind to violently fry the circuitry of the bully's phone. Driven to protect, Tom finds himself outside Lucy's building. When Eugene's crew approaches a nearby basketball court, Lucy wilts into pure terror. Seeing her fear cements Tom's resolve. He becomes an invisible tormentor, flickering the gang's lights, locking their systems, and bleeding threatening static through their screens. During an emergency school assembly, Tom hacks the auditorium mainframe and projects a deeply humiliating private video belonging to Cass, Eugene's core enforcer, leaving Cass utterly shattered. Later, while walking with Lucy, she muses over who this digital ghost could be. Through an encrypted chat, she confesses the gang attacked because her brother Ben defied their recruitment orders. When she asks for his identity, Tom glances at her and types, "From now on, you can call me iBoy." A few nights later, Tom and Lucy are cornered by Eugene and his pack. Eugene grabs Tom, demanding to know if he is the bastard behind the texts. Suddenly, Eugene's phone vibrates with a message from the digital ghost. Wrong guy. The confusion gives Tom enough leverage to rip Lucy away and vanish. The next day, Tom tracks 3 of the enforcers to a stolen vehicle. The moment they slide inside, Tom triggers the central locks, trapping them. A deeply distorted mechanical voice booms through the speakers, announcing that an invisible god is watching. Tom overloads the cooling system, filling the cabin with acrid smoke. When Tom sparks an electrical fire under the hood, Cass brakes, screaming the name of their distributor, Cuts. Tom pops the locks, and the gang tumbles out seconds before the vehicle explodes. Tom turns his digital crosshairs toward Cuts' luxury high-rise, unaware that his friend Danny is actually on the Kingpin's payroll as a syndicate mole. In his penthouse, Cuts watches a live news broadcast of his burning street operations, which Tom overrides to air a mocking manifesto. Exploding into a homicidal rage, Cuts mobilizes his armed detail to hunt the digital terrorist. With the fortress emptied, Tom slips inside. He triggers an electromagnetic pulse that fries every piece of tech, cracks the executive safe, and walks out with millions in narcotics. Using his digital omniscience, Tom plants the stolen narcotics in mid-level gang apartments and routes anonymous tips to Scotland Yard. Within 48 hours, tactical units arrest the syndicate en masse, including Eugene. To finish the job, Tom liquidates Cut's offshore bank accounts. But as power corrupts his empathy, Tom's humanity begins to calcify. He casually blacks out the electrical grid of an entire London borough just to prove the city belongs to him. Facing total liquidation, Cuts receives a chilling ultimatum from Elman, the supreme mastermind of London's underworld. Recover the lost capital and kill the digital ghost, or face execution. Intercepting the call, Tom records Elman's identity. Desperate, Cuts orders his soldiers to launch a neighborhood sweep, confiscating every electronic device to starve iBoy of his network. Terrified by the cold look in her grandson's eyes, Nancy secretly begs Danny to watch over Tom. Meanwhile, Tom tracks Cut's movements, firing a final text to Lucy, promising to end the nightmare. Lucy pleads with him to stop, warning that he isn't saving anyone anymore. He's just fallen in love with the violence. Realizing he is being tracked, Cuts tosses his phone into a garbage truck to create a blind spot. Tom loses the signal but quickly hacks into live police helicopter feeds, spotting Cut's vehicle weaving toward the industrial docks. Tom tracks the gang to a labyrinth of shipping containers and ignites a storage unit housing Elman's backup narcotics shipment, incinerating millions. But as he turns to escape, Cuts and his men ambush him. Facing death, Tom activates a nuclear option within his mind, unleashing a localized, high-decibel acoustic pulse through every speaker and industrial siren on the docks, dropping the mercenaries to their knees. Concussed and bleeding internally, Tom stumbles away and blackouts. He awakes the next morning with his equilibrium shattered. Spotting him staggering near the school courtyard, Lucy angrily accuses him of being unreliable. Tom tries to explain the blood on his collar, but she turns away. Suddenly, a collective scream rises. Tom and Lucy look skyward, freezing in absolute horror. Cass's lifeless body is dangling from a high railing, staged as a desperate suicide. Later, sitting on a rusted rooftop with Danny, Tom asks who could have committed such an atrocity. Danny places the blame squarely on iBoy, stating that the Vigilante's ego has pushed the neighborhood into a mindless bloodbath. The mental weight triggers a violent physical rejection in Tom's body. Desperate to be human again, he begs his doctor to cut the metal out of his head. But the surgeon delivers a devastating truth. The fragments are deeply entwined with his cerebral architecture. A single scalpel stroke would end his life instantly. That night, the nightmare breaches his sanctuary. The front door of his flat is kicked off its hinges, and heavy-handed killers drag Tom into his living room. Standing over him is Cuts, alongside Elman. Nancy screams, but Cuts violently knocks her unconscious. Elman kneels beside a terrified Tom, revealing he has mapped iBoy's identity from the start. The crime boss offers a dark covenant: run his global empire using his digital godhead, or face destruction. Smiling, Elman chooses violence. His men pin Tom to the floor, forcing him to scam a network to locate Lucy. Tom's digital vision tears through the local towers, unlocking a horrific feed. Lucy has been bound and gagged inside a concrete warehouse by Eugene and his crew, who have been liberated from prison through Elman's corrupt reach. To break Tom's spirit completely, Elman drops the final piece of the puzzle. It was Danny who sold him out, trading iBoy's identity for a payout. Tom looks at his childhood friend, his heart completely breaking. Elman casts Danny aside like trash, before ordering Tom to execute a massive, untraceable wire transfer of his stolen millions back to the syndicate's accounts. If the progress bar halts, Lucy's throat is cut on a live stream. Tom initiates the data upload, but hidden beneath the primary stream, he routes an encrypted emergency distress signal straight to Scotland Yard, pinning the warehouse's coordinates. Inside the facility, Eugene balances a loaded weapon, waiting for the execution order. Suddenly, the distant wail of police sirens echoes. Tactical units breach the perimeter. Tom overloads the recording device from his apartment to sever the digital trail, causing the gang to panic and drag Lucy into the labyrinthine crawlspaces, narrowly evading the police sweep. The moment the link severs, a blinding surge of feedback causes Tom to convulse. Elman realizes the boy has played him and orders his men to drag Tom straight to the execution dock. Inside the warehouse courtyard, the gang celebrates their narrow evasion. But during the chaotic scramble, Eugene's sidearm slips from his holster. In a flash of pure adrenaline, Lucy dives for the weapon, leveling the barrel straight at Eugene's chest. The bullies freeze in absolute terror, as Lucy demands they drop to their knees. But as she stares into the eyes of the boys she once knew, her humanity holds the line. She cannot pull the trigger. Hollowed out, she drops the weapon and flees into the night air. But the exit is a trap. Elman's convoy is already waiting. Before Lucy can react, an enforcer strikes Tom across his skull with the butt of a shotgun, dropping him to the gravel. Elman demands the completion of the transfer, but Tom has reached the absolute end of his restraint. He focuses the entirety of his remaining neurological energy, targeting the lithium batteries of every cell phone resting in the pockets of Elman's guards. A series of violent shrapnel-filled explosions rip through the clothing of his inner circle, sending the courtyard into fire and screaming. Lucy uses the distraction to drop Eugene with a calculated defensive strike, while Tom pulls himself up to engage the remaining shooters. Out of the smoke, Elman appears, swinging a heavy iron reinforcement bar. The blow fractures Tom's collarbone, sending him crashing into the dirt. Elman systematically beats the boy, throwing insults at his pathetic attempts to play God. Tom attempts one final acoustic pulse, but Elman drives his boot straight into Tom's jaw, flickering his consciousness out. Elman hovers over the boy's limp form, raising the iron bar high above his head. A sharp crack echoes. Lucy stands 20 paces away, the heavy sidearm smoking in her grip. She screams at Elman to step away. Elman turns, a predatory smile spreading across his face as he advances on her. Lucy pulls the trigger again, but the mechanism jams. She clears the chamber at the last possible second, firing a round straight into Elman's shoulder. The gangster growls through the pain and delivers a devastating punch that throws Lucy onto the asphalt, leaving her motionless. Tom's eyes flutter open just in time to see Lucy drop. Something deep within him completely breaks. The human limits of his brain vanish. He rises from the dirt like a specter, his eyes reflecting pure, unadulterated digital fury. Elman grips the iron bar, charging forward for one final execution. Tom doesn't dodge. He opens his throat and unleashes a catastrophic, reality-warping scream, fueled by every watt of electromagnetic energy in his body. A visible kinetic shockwave explodes outward from his chest, tearing through the air and completely disintegrating Elman where he stands. The master of London's underworld is erased from existence. The energy spent, Tom's neural network collapses, and he drops onto the gravel. Sometime later, Tom opens his eyes to the soft, rhythmic hum of a hospital monitor. Nancy is there, weeping softly as she strokes his hand. Weeks later, domestic quiet returns as Tom and Nancy share a peaceful lunch in their clean apartment, the shadow of fear finally lifted. Walking through the neighborhood blocks, Tom crosses paths with Danny. The boy looks hollow, consumed by a suffocating guilt. He offers Tom the blood money Elman had paid him, begging for a clean slate. Tom pushes the cash away, his voice calm but ice cold. He looks at his former friend and delivers a parting thought. When I was hunting down everyone who hurt Lucy, I realized I never looked for the person who was holding the camera. Danny's face goes completely pale. Trembling, he mutters a desperate good luck before vanishing down the alleyway. As evening sets over London, Tom climbs to the rooftop terrace of their estate, where Lucy is waiting. He has set up a modest, candlelit dinner on a small table resting on the concrete. Surrounded by the sprawling lights of a city no longer choked by shadow, the two of them step into each other's arms, sharing a quiet, long-awaited kiss. The nightmare is over. The monsters have been permanently purged from the grid. This movie ends here. If you enjoyed this movie explanation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon.